Hello everyone and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. Today I'm going to be continuing on with Chapter 2 of Burn Your Wings, entitled And Icarus Burns His Wings. Daedalus crafts wings of feathers and wax for himself and his son. He ties a pair of wings to his shivering son, ignoring the boy's wince as the straps dig harshly into his flesh. "Be sure to follow me, boy," Daedalus warns. "Never fly too high, just follow me." "But father," Icarus whispers, "I want to reach the sun." Daedalus's face suddenly twists in rage. "You dare defy me, boy," he spits out, and Icarus thinks he sees a jet of flames come out of his mouth like the fire-breathing monsters he's only heard stories of. The boy stumbles back, then turns back to his father, and takes off running until momentum builds under his wings and he's flying. Icarus yelps, terrified at first, but then he realizes that he's actually free. He turns his face to the sun and reaches for it, flying higher, closer, until he thinks that maybe, just maybe, he can reach it. Be it. But as Icarus nears the sun, this beacon of light and hope, its heat starts melting the wax and scorching the feathers of his wings. And suddenly, it's not Icarus but Izuku whose wings are burning on his back and shoulders, and he hurts so much, and there's a shrill voice that's not his screaming in his ear, and somewhere below him Daedalus, no, Hisashi, laughs cruelly. "You can never be the sun, boy. You belong down here with me," the man laughs, lazily flapping his own wings, his black eyes dancing with malicious mirth, "like father, like son." And those words burn more than any physical pain ever could. So Izuku grits his teeth and straightens his hunch back. "No," he says through his tears, "I will not be like you." Izuku forces his chin up and faces the sun once more, reaching for it with all his strength, even as it makes the wings his father tied to him melt and burn and scar his skin. Tears stream down his face, but Izuku bares his teeth and strains and grasps and hopes and wishes and pulls, and then he is pushed back, pushed down, pushed away, and Izuku falls down to the sound of Hisashi's laughter, and his mother screams. He falls, and Izuku wakes with a gasp. He wakes to find his hands desperately scrabbling at his back and shoulders, and has to consciously force them down. His back burns, but he knows it's mostly only phantom pain, aside from the scratches he must have given himself in his sleep. And that's not exactly good, but it's okay, because Izuku has long since learned to bear physical pain. It's a different kind of pain that makes his breath short. Izuku grasps blindly in the dark until his hand closes on his phone. He pushes back the long locks of hair tumbling into his eyes, and with one hand, while the other frantically flicks through his contacts. The list isn't long. In fact, it's laughably short, but it takes an agonizingly long time for him to find what he's looking for, because Izuku is shaking so much that his bloodied fingertips keep slipping over the screen. This is dumb, he knows. This need to confirm that meeting All Might wasn't just a fever dream is dumb, irrational, and downright pathetic, but he knows that he won't find All Might's name in his contact list because he made sure that it wouldn't be there. What if he loses his phone or someone hacks it? It's not impossible with his rotten luck, and he will never endanger All Might's secret like that. So at best he'll find is the pseudonym he saved the hero's name under, but there it is. Izuku's entire body stills as his thumb hovers over the screen detailing All Might's contact info. It has the series of numbers that Izuku religiously memorized by heart the moment that he received them. It has the pseudonym he secretly saved them under. The sun. A sound something between a strangled sob and a wretched laugh makes its way out of Izuku's mouth. He muffles it against the back of his hand, not wanting to wake his mother. He clutches his phone tightly to his chest with both hands, and his hair spills around his face in messy curls as he hunches protectively over it. He doesn't even care that he's being pathetic anymore, because he has All Might's number on his phone, which means he's actually met his hero. And he really asked Izuku to be his successor and told him he could be a hero. Izuku kneels on his bed with his phone clutched to his chest and phantom fire burning in his back, and silent sobs and laughter choked his throat. He is going to be All Might's successor. He is going to be a beacon of hope. He is going to be a hero. He is not going to be like his father, even if he has to burn himself down. Izuku hasn't had many or any positive older figures to look up to that he could actually meet in real life and not just fan stalk on the internet. But now that the very person who's been the oldest subject of said fan stalking is living, breathing, and puking blood in front of him, Izuku doesn't know how to act. The training part is easy, because while Izuku has never had enough guidance to actually be able to train his body, Inko couldn't help no matter how much she wanted to. Those who could help didn't want to. Izuku wasn't dumb enough to try to train all by himself without professional supervision, and he would never dare ask his mother to enroll him in some gym or dojo and put even more strain on her. All Might has done all the heavy lifting for him. The man has already drawn up an entire training plan and even now is making adjustments as necessary as he gets to know Izuku's body better. And Izuku has all he has to do is push through his exhaustion and pain enough to just stick to the plan made for him. And pain? That's something that Izuku is more than familiar with. So no, despite All Might's initial worries, Izuku is fine with the training itself, grueling and hard as it is. What unsettles him in his interactions with his mentor, he supposes. And God, did he almost want to have a heart attack right then and there when he first realized that he was now qualified to call All Might his mentor. The thing is, the first time All Might had called him my boy, Izuku had almost flinched. My boy, Izuku had to remind himself, not harsh and impersonal, not a barked boy. That's more a command than a call, but my boy, warm and encouraging and even, dare he say it, affectionate. But even so, the endearment catches Izuku off guard from time to time, and he has to take a moment blinking wildly before he can respond with an appropriate smile, and that frustrates Izuku. Hisashi has no right tainting the one pure good thing in his life, and the man does it without even trying, without even having to be present for the last 9 years. It's just so unfair. But then again, Izuku already knows that life isn't fair, and it certainly isn't kind. Everything good Izuku has had to hope for has either been stripped away from him or left broken in his hands. He can't let that happen to All Might, so Izuku will do whatever it takes to protect his hero, even if he has to burn himself down. All Might. Toshinori turns his head towards young Midoriya. They're taking a short break at the moment, and he must say he's impressed. Toshinori himself knows more than anyone that the training plan he set up is grueling, if not downright harsh. But this bright boy has never complained or shied away even once. He can't help but smile at the child. He's stubbornly wearing a long-sleeved shirt and pants again, even in the summer sun, but today his hair isn't in his usual half-bun. Instead, Midoriya has gathered all of his dark hair into a low ponytail. Stray locks have fallen out of the tie, curling around his flushed face, and the ends of his bushy ponytail peek out over his shoulders. He's adorable, Toshinori confirmed solemnly, with a decisive nod. If the usual half-bun had looked like the small, fluffy tuft of a rabbit's tail, then this ponytail reminds him of something bushier, the tail of some kind of dog. Yes, but which? Toshinori peers down at the boy, concentrating so hard he doesn't notice the bemused expression on his subject of study. All Might... A Pomeranian! Toshinori bursts out triumphantly, and young Midoriya jumps slightly with a bewildered look. What? Toshinori blinks, and then grins, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. My apologies. I'm afraid I lost myself in thought. What was it you wanted to say, my boy? And there's that little spasm. Toshinori had noticed it, that Midoriya tended to do that from time to time, usually at the phrase, my boy. He is not quite sure as to why. Perhaps this endearment puts his fanboy heart into overdrive. But Midoriya smiles shyly at him before Toshinori could ask, and his heart melts a little at the boy's expression. Like he said, adorable. I wanted to ask you a question, if it's not too much of a bother. Toshinori smiles down at the boy. Your hesitation is endearing. The boy lets out a little eep, an embarrassed but pleased blush spreading across his face. But we've got to work on your self-confidence. Of course you can ask me a question. Midoriya smiles with a tentative gratefulness, but then looks down at his hands with a slight frown. It's not that I don't trust your judgment, he starts carefully, but are you sure that it's best to pass one for all to me as soon as my body is ready? Toshinori spits out blood. Well, whatever he had been expecting, it certainly wasn't that. Why do you say that? I would have thought you'd be anxious to inherit it. And Toshinori is truly confused because young Midoriya has been nothing but eager and willing in his training. It's just... The boy takes a breath. If I get one for all, as soon as my body is physically capable of hosting it, I won't be able to use it. Even if I inherit your quirk, I won't automatically inherit your position as the number one hero and symbol of peace as well. I'll be more than glorified vessel. Midoriya lifts his head now and looks straight at Toshinori. But people need the symbol of peace. People need the beacon of hope. People need you, not me. So please, keep one for all as long as you need to, and only pass it on to me when you can't contain it anymore. I can wait. I can be an insurance and protect you and your legacy, but empowering me means weakening you, and I can't do that. And the boy says this, meeting Toshinori's eyes wide, his gaze unwavering, his voice firm. He's serious, Toshinori realizes. Worse, he's sincere. He's sincerely giving up his best chance to fulfill his dream for the good of others, is casually dismissing himself and urging Toshinori to prioritize All Might's name over his own dreams. Part of Toshinori is touched at the boy's words because it has been years since anyone had said they'll protect him, but another part of him twists in horror at the casual disregard the boy points to himself. Selflessness and bravery is the reason Toshinori chose Midoriya, but there is a point where even the best qualities turn into a vice. Toshinori places his hands on either side of Midoriya's shoulders. He stoops to look the boy in the eye and wills him to feel the truth in his words. Midoriya, my boy, you are not a backup plan. He freezes, eyes wide. Toshinori's heart aches, because that's just proof that he'd hit home, but he continues, still keeping eye contact. It's true that you may not be able to fully wield One for All as soon as you receive it, but that's the point. The point is to train you so that you can, so that you become ready to take my place. You are not a backup plan, but the plan. You are not a spare, or a second choice, or an insurance, or merely a vessel. You are the one, and you will be the number one hero. Toshinori pauses, looking down into the wide eyes of Midoriya. That is, only if you yourself do your best, of course. Will you? Midoriya's eyes are suspiciously bright, but he swallows and whispers, yes. He shakes his head, blinking a few times, and meets Toshinori's gaze again with a look that is less lost and more determined. Yes, he says firmly. Toshinori grins. Good, and stop selling yourself short, my boy. Humbleness and low self-worth are not the same things. Remember, you've already saved me. All I did was try to protect Bakugo, and in the end I couldn't even do that, Midoriya protests, as a thoroughly bemused look on his face, and Toshinori chuckles. The day we first met, your deeds are what spurred me into action. You kept me from becoming a sorry excuse that's all talk. You reminded me what it is to be a true hero. You saved me. Toshinori gently taps the boy's chest right over his heart. Protecting someone from bodily harm isn't all there is to being a hero. You have to look here, too, in order to truly save them, and you, my boy, have already saved me. So don't ever let yourself believe that you're not a hero. It's one of his better speeches, if Toshinori would say so himself, and believe him, he's given a lot of speeches. But for some reason, young Midoriya looks like he's ready to cry. I'm home, Mom. Welcome back, darling. Inko's reply comes from the kitchen, her voice soft by habit even after all these years. Izuku quietly makes his way towards her. He stops by the kitchen entrance and wordlessly watches his mother work. She has dark green hair up in its usual half-do. Her form has slowly filled out ever since Hisashi left, and she has actually been able to eat and do what she pleases. She has a pink apron thrown on top of herself at the moment. She looks so peaceful and happy, and it's because Hisashi isn't here anymore. It has nothing to do with what Izuku did. Izuku remembers his 3-4-year-old self smiling at her after the first time he took a beating for her. I protected you, he had said, smiling with elation and pride. But Inko had replied with a sob. I'm sorry, she had cried. I'm so sorry, Izuku. He had already known something was wrong then. Izuku can't regret having protected his mother, but All Might has just driven home that protecting her has never been enough. That Izuku has never been enough. His back burns. Inko turns around, smiling softly at the sight of her son, wordlessly watching her with unreadable eyes. Yes, dear? Izuku takes in a deep, long breath. Did I hurt you? Did I end up hurting you even more than you already were? What should I have done? How could I have saved you? Why did you say you were sorry? Why did you cry? Why? It's nothing. The months fly by, and before he knows it, Izuku has left the nearly cleaned-up beach, inherited one for all, eat this, and is now at the practical part of UA's entrance exam. He has to take down as many robots as he can within the allotted time, which is a feat that can't be done without utilizing a quirk. But Izuku has never been quirkless, regardless of what Bakugo said or he himself wished, and right now what Izuku wants has nothing to do with what he needs to do. Even though he's received one for all this morning, Izuku knows he can't use it yet without his limbs going, to borrow All Might's expression, kaboom. He's known that since he started training, he's planned accordingly. Quirk analysis has been Izuku's specialty out of necessity. First, he started studying quirks frantically in an attempt to find a way to suppress his fire, then in desperation when he found out his quirk was a double-edged sword, and finally in resignation to find a way to be a hero without using his quirk. From what Izuku has analyzed about One for All, it stockpiles and passes on each wielder's power, but in essence, it's an enhancement quirk. With a power like that, enhancing your physical body seems like the obvious choice, but Izuku can't do that yet, so what if he enhances his quirk instead? As if on cue, a robot comes screeching around the corner towards Izuku. It's only a one-point bot, yet it still towers over him, easily larger and heavier than anything Izuku had ever been able to pull before. But he plants his feet, reaches out his hand, and pulls. The robot comes flying with a surprising speed. It would have crushed Izuku if he hadn't purposely maneuvered and put a sturdy-looking lamppost between them beforehand. The force of the robot crashing into it causes the top of the lamppost to snap, and the jagged edge impales the hunk of metal. Izuku doesn't even have the luxury to watch his handiwork, though, because he already has his fire building up pressure, clamoring to be let out, howling and clawing like a wild beast. "Let it out," a poisonous voice breathes in his ear. "You know how strong fire is." A ghostly touch brushes over his shoulder blades, over his scars. Izuku grits his teeth. "No," he tells it, "I won't use it because I know exactly how strong, how destructive it is. I will never be like you." The build-up is a physical pain now, just as One for All has enhanced the pull. The push part of his quirk seems to have strengthened as well. Izuku clamps down on it, forcing it as small as he can manage. Yet he has to let it out, though, and it feels like holding his breath. Like he's slowly suffocating, but he can't just let loose a random blaze of fire when other students are moving erratically around him and someone can get hurt. And Izuku hates it, but the perfect solution comes to mind. He clamps a hand over his mouth and he lets out the tiniest flame he can manage. Fire comes spilling out of his mouth like coughing up blood, but it's blocked by his palm before it can break into the free world. His throat burns, but he knows it's less actual physical pain and more psychological at the thought that he's breathing fire the same way Hizashi used to. A few more fiery coughs rack Izuku's body, but they're over soon enough, and he's able to take his hand away and straighten his back. His palm is smoking and red, but it's a second-degree burn at most. He can ignore that pain. It's not like he hasn't had worse, after all. Izuku knows from his red palm, and he looks from that to the impaled robot. "Okay," he whispers shakily, "I can do this." Izuku may hate his fire, and hate breathing fire even more, but if it gives him a way to use his pool while not harming others, he'll take it. His father's quirk hurts people. His mother's quirk might be able to protect them. Just like he promised when he was 4, Izuku can do this with just his mother's power. He can become a hero with just his mother's power. This fire may be an unfortunate side effect, but he won't actively use it. He won't let it control him. He won't let it hurt anyone but him. "Okay," he repeats, swiping the back of his hand over his mouth. Izuku squares his shoulder and takes off running. Izuku quickly forms a pattern. Find a robot, pull it so it goes crashing into the side of a building or even another robot if he's lucky. Cough up flames into his hand like All Might coughs up blood, then take off again. The amount of fire Izuku is letting push out of him is minuscule compared to the amount he's pulling, and the strain makes itself known. It feels like taking in a long breath and only letting out a quick, short gasp. It leaves him feeling breathless and panting, but it works. Thanks to the power boost of One for All, grants his pull he can manage. He even has somewhat of an advantage because as long as Izuku can spot a robot, he can pull and destroy it before anyone else gets to it. Things seem to be going very well, which is, of course, the precise moment that everything goes wrong. A commotion breaks out somewhere behind Izuku, and he turns to find a skyscraper on wheels. Izuku gapes for a moment. That's the zero-pointer? Are you fucking serious? And it's about to make a run for it when he spots a girl crumpled on the ground right into the path of the zero-pointer. And Izuku doesn't know this girl. He's never seen her or talked to her, or even noticed her before. But the moment he sees the tears in her eyes, there's only one thing he can think to do. He steps between them. Izuku's mind is in overdrive. Pulling the girl towards him will maybe buy them a few seconds, but ultimately it will be no use since the zero-pointer will still be after them. Izuku wants to protect, no, save this girl. He has to stop the robot. Izuku flings his arms straight up towards the head of the robot, towering above him, and pulls, hoping to embed its head into the ground. But it's either his pull isn't strong enough, even with one for all, or he just doesn't have good enough control over yet, because instead of the robot's head being pulled towards him, he is pulled towards it. He has just enough time to think, oh shit, as he rockets through the air before he's face to face with a giant zero-pointer. Again, Izuku's mind is in overdrive. He can already feel the flame building up inside of him. But what can a little fire do to a humongous hunk of metal? Neither his push or his pull will be of any use here. That only leaves one option. And if his limbs do go kaboom, well, All Might himself did say that a hero has to push through his own pain for the sake of others, and Izuku is more than familiar with pain. Izuku draws back a fist before gravity takes hold of him, one for all envelops his right arm like green lightning, crackling with raw power. Clench your buttocks and scream from the bottom of your heart, All Might's voice rang in his ears, and despite the situation, Izuku bares his teeth in a grin. Smash! The robot's face folds into itself and crumples like pressed garbage. Izuku feels a whoop of elation before gravity finally takes hold of him, and he started falling after the downed robot. Oh shit, he thinks again, mind once more going into overdrive. Quick, think. He's shattered his right arm from that smash, and it's flopping uselessly at his side now, but he still has another arm and 2 legs left. He could try breaking his fall with another smash, but if he's even a moment too soon or too late, he's done for. Then what else? Oh shit! He has a solution, and his quirk is not going to be happy about it. Izuku hasn't even pushed out the fire that his initial pull cost him, so pulling again will make the backlash a bitch, but it's the best plan he has right now. From his initial move, Izuku knows that trying to pull something greater than his capacity makes him shoot towards it, giving him mobility that he didn't have before. Pulling again without pushing is going to come back to bite him in the ass, but he can do it, probably. Izuku reaches his left hand out to the falling zero-point bot and pulls. His free fall is broken as his body is whipped towards the zero-pointer's head. He smacks against it, feet first, skidding a bit until he gains balance on the falling robot and hangs on with one arm while it crashes to the ground. Izuku rides it like a surfboard, letting the giant hunk of metal absorb most of the impact. He grits his teeth as shockwaves make his shattered arm wave wildly in the wind like a piece of cloth, but otherwise he's unharmed. The dust finally settles, and Izuku stands up on top of the fallen zero-pointer's head. He spots the girl he'd tried to protect floating on top of a piece of metal nearby. She has a hand stretched out in his direction as if she was trying to reach him. Their eyes meet. Are you okay? They ask at the same time. They blink, then start laughing together, and continuing their synchronization, they both start puking at the same exact moment, too. The girl drops from the air, throws up on the ground. Izuku doubles over as he retches and flames come spilling out of his mouth. He doesn't know why, but he actually feels physically sick. The flames burn his throat and his palm, harsher and far more intense from having been kept back for so long. Izuku drops to his knees and clamps his good hand over his mouth in a desperate attempt to keep the volatile flames to himself so that he won't hurt anyone. He heaves, violent bursts of fire racking his body as it pushes out of him forcefully with a vengeance. He'd been right, the backlash is a bitch. When the side effect eventually runs its full course and subdues, Izuku is left shaking and shivering. So when Present Mike announces the end of the test, it's almost a relief. This concludes 2 of Burn Your Wings. I really love this fic. I hope you guys enjoyed this section as well. I will have the third section of this posted as soon as possible. Let me know your guys' reactions to this in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for listening.